Leapmotor wants you to forget everything you know about the brand. Up until now, if you've heard of Leapmotor at all in the UK, it's probably because of the T03 city car or the B10 and C10, two SUVs that, let's be honest, nobody's pulse actually races for. But this is different. This is the B05. It's not an SUV. It's a proper, low, sleek, 5-door electric hatchback, and it's aiming directly at one of the most competitive corners of the entire EV market. Cars like the Volkswagen ID.3, the Cupra Born, the Renault Megane E-Tech, and of course, the car that's been the default budget EV recommendation for the last few years, the MG4. So first things first, some context. Leapmotor is a Chinese EV brand, but it's not going it alone in Europe. It's backed by Stellantis, yes, the same giant that owns Peugeot, Citroën, Vauxhall, and Fiat. That's a big deal because it means Leapmotor already has access to dealership and servicing infrastructure across the country. You're not buying into some brand new startup with 3 showrooms and a prayer. If something goes wrong with this car, there's a real established network behind it. The B05 is Leapmotor's 4th model in the UK, and it's the one that finally proves this company can do something other than SUVs. Leapmotor themselves have described it as a sporty-looking C-hatch with a muscular silhouette. And while I'd take the marketing spin with a pinch of salt, they're not entirely wrong. This car shares its underlying platform at a lot of its parts with the bigger B10 SUV, but wrapped in a completely different, much lower and sleeker body. And here's the headline that's going to matter for basically this entire video. Pricing. The B05 launches in the UK from £28,995 once you factor in Leapmotor's own Leap grant, a £1,500 discount the brand is applying itself, since the car doesn't qualify for the UK government's official electric car grant. Before that discount, list price is £30,495. Either way, that undercuts a huge chunk of this segment, and it's genuinely competitive with, and in some cases cheaper than, its rivals, including the MG4. At 4.43 meters long, this thing is actually one of the larger hatchbacks in its class, around 15 centimeters longer than an MG4 or a Volkswagen Golf, and it's wider and taller too, with a longer wheelbase than most of its direct rivals. So even though Leapmotor calls it a hatchback, in terms of footprint, it's pushing into bigger territory. Up front, you get slim LED headlights arranged in Leapmotor's signature saber brow design, 3 separate horizontal light bars within each headlight cluster, which is the same family face you'll see on the bigger B10. There's an illuminated light bar linking the 2 headlights, and if you look at the proportions, there's more than a hint of Volkswagen Golf in the stance. Around the sides, this is where it starts to feel a bit more special. You get frameless doors, proper coupe-style doors with no window frame, and flush door handles that sit flat against the bodywork until you touch them. It gives the whole side profile a really clean, uninterrupted look, helped by gloss black trim around the bumpers and lower sections. The roofline is noticeably lower and sleeker than you'd expect from what is, underneath it all, a practical family hatchback. Leapmotor is clearly chasing a bit of that Cupra-style sportiness with the silhouette. Round the back, there's a full-width light bar running across the tailgate, and honestly, I think it's one of the best-looking elements of the whole car. Now, I'll be balanced here. Some reviewers have called the styling generic, and I get where that's coming from. Leapmotor hasn't done anything wildly controversial or divisive with this design. It's not going to offend anyone, but it's also not going to make people cross the street to look at it. What it does have going for it, though, is a genuine sense of occasion with those frameless doors and that low stance, details you don't often get at this price point. Underneath, there's real engineering substance, too. Leapmotor claims a drag coefficient of just 0.26, helped by active aerodynamic elements, and a 50-50 front-to-rear weight distribution, which, as we'll get to, actually matters once you start driving it. Step inside, and this is where the B05 starts to feel like it's punching above its price tag. The dashboard is dominated by a huge 14.6-inch floating central touchscreen, paired with an 8.8-inch digital driver's display ahead of the steering wheel,
all running on Leapmotor's own LeapOS 4.0 software. It's a modern, fast-feeling setup. Reviewers have consistently praised how responsive the infotainment is, which isn't something you could always say about budget Chinese EVs a couple of years ago. There's also a party trick with the door entry. No physical key needed. You just type a passcode into the touchscreen to get in, on top of the usual keyless options. Now, because this is the UK, and because Leapmotor has kept things refreshingly simple, there's genuinely only one trim level. No endless options list, no which spec do I need headache. Every single B05 sold here comes loaded with a panoramic glass roof with an electric sunblind, heated and ventilated front seats, a heated steering wheel, 6-way electrically adjustable driver's seat, wireless phone charging, automatic LED headlights, automatic wipers, rear privacy glass, adaptive cruise control, and 19-inch alloy wheels as standard. For context, rivals like the Vauxhall Astra Electric and Peugeot E308 both start from around £30,000 just to get in the door, before you've added any of that equipment.
In terms of space, this is genuinely one of the B05's biggest strengths. Rear legroom is among the best in the entire segment, helped by that longer wheelbase, and there's a completely flat floor which makes the middle rear seat a realistic option rather than an afterthought. The rear seats even recline up to 27 degrees, which is a genuinely premium touch you don't often see at this price. I do need to flag one honest caveat here, though. Headroom is a different story. One UK tester at 6'2" said he had just enough headroom to spare in the back, but reckoned anyone taller than him would genuinely struggle. So plenty of legroom, but if you regularly carry tall adult passengers in the rear, it's worth sitting in the back seat yourself before you buy. There are also 2 ISOFIX points for child seats in the outer rear positions, and the rear door apertures are wide, so getting a child seat in and out isn't a fight. Around the cabin, Leapmotor has packed in about 25 separate storage areas, door bins, a lidded armrest box, a bridge console design with cup holders and phone charging on top, and extra storage underneath. It's a genuinely thoughtful, well-equipped interior for everyday use. The boot is the B05's weak point. You're looking at 345 liters of boot space with the rear seats up, expanding to 1,400 liters with them folded. That's smaller than most of this car's direct rivals. The MG4 offers around 363 to 388 liters, depending on which figures you look at. The VW ID3 offers 385 liters, and the Renault Megane offers a genuinely huge 440 liters. There's also no front boot, no frunk, so your charging cables live in the main boot and eat into that already smaller space. And there's a bit of a loading lip to lift heavier items over. So here's the honest trade-off. Leapmotor has clearly prioritized rear passenger space over boot space. If you regularly need to haul a big weekly shop, pushchairs, and luggage all at once, that's worth knowing before you buy. If your priority is comfortable rear seats for passengers, the B05 wins that particular battle outright.
Let's talk tech, because there's a lot going on here. Some of it excellent, some of it frustrating. On the safety and driver assistance side, the B05 comes absolutely loaded. 21 individual ADAS functions as standard, running off a network of 14 sensors and cameras around the car. That includes things like hands-off detection, to make sure you're paying attention while using lane keeping assist, rear cross-traffic braking that can automatically brake if something's approaching while you're reversing, intelligent speed assist that reads road signs and displays the speed limit in real time, and driver drowsiness and attention warning that monitors you for signs of fatigue. On paper, this reads like a car built with safety as an absolute priority, and Leapmotor's engineers say the B05 actually has more front sensor coverage than the related B10, specifically to improve how the adaptive cruise control copes in poor visibility. Leapmotor is also pointing to a claimed torsional stiffness of 34,500 Newton-meters per degree for the body structure, and 7 airbags, front, side, curtain, and far side coverage. On safety ratings, as of filming this,
Independent UK reviewers, including AutoTrader, CarWow, and The Car Expert, all confirm the B05 has not yet been crash tested by Euro NCAP. You may see dealer or manufacturer marketing already claiming a 5-star result, but that's premature, and I'd treat it with caution until Euro NCAP actually publishes an official result. What we do know is that the B05 shares so much of its structure and platform with the B10, which has already scored a full 5-star rating, so the expectation across pretty much every independent outlet that's driven it is that the B05 will land in a similar place once official testing is complete. Now here's the honest bit, and it's come up again and again in early reviews. The way all this driver assistance tech is implemented is not great. Multiple reviewers have described the car as beepy and bongy when everything's switched on, constant alerts for things that aren't always clear, and lane-keeping assist that can tug at the steering wheel with real noticeable force. On narrower roads, that's been described as more distracting than helpful. The good news is you can dial the systems down or switch them off, and most reviewers say doing that transforms the experience. But out of the box, this is probably the single most criticized part of the whole car. Brilliant hardware let down by fussy software tuning. Away from the driver assistance, there are some really clever everyday features too. A camp mode for using the car's battery to run accessories while parked, vehicle-to-load capability so you can power external devices straight from the car, scheduled charging, and a built-in dash cam-style recording function. Little touches like that show Leapmotor is thinking beyond just the basics.
Right, let's get into what actually matters once you're behind the wheel. Every B05 in the UK gets the same setup. A single rear-mounted electric motor producing 215 horsepower and 240 newton-meters of torque, sending power to the rear wheels. Rear-wheel drive, which is genuinely unusual at this price point, where front-wheel drive is the norm. Leapmotor claims a 0 to 62 mile/hour time of 6.7 seconds, helped along by a launch control mode, with a top speed of 106 miles/hour. For context, that claimed time is quicker than a Cupra Born and quicker than a Renault Megane, but it is slower than the MG4 extended range, which manages 0 to 62 in 6.2 seconds. One tester overseas noted the real-world sprint felt a touch more relaxed than the official number suggests. That's a subjective driving impression rather than a measured figure, but worth keeping in mind. Either way, this is not a slow car by any means. The chassis is genuinely interesting too. You've got McPherson struts up front and a multi-link setup at the rear, with that 50-50 weight distribution I mentioned earlier, and Leapmotor says the whole thing has been specifically tuned for European roads, rather than just imported wholesale from China. Now, this is where I need to give you the honest, warts-and-all picture, because reviews on this point are genuinely mixed depending on which market they were tested in. It doesn't feel wobbly or wayward through corners the way some rivals in this price bracket can, and on the motorway it's genuinely hushed, minimal wind and tire noise, and the power comes in smoothly and predictably rather than aggressively, especially in comfort mode. But UK road testers have been notably less impressed with ride comfort specifically. Whatcar, one of the most respected reviewers over here, found the suspension fidgets over small imperfections around town and thumps over bigger ones at speed. They actually list a fidgety ride as one of the car's specific weaknesses. The steering tells a similar story. In comfort mode, it's light and a bit woolly, and while standard and sport modes add useful weight as your speed builds, it still doesn't feel as direct or as natural as rivals like the Cupra Born or Renault Megane. There's a sport mode and launch control if you want to have a bit of fun with it, but let's be clear, this is not a hot hatch and it's not trying to be. This is a car tuned primarily for comfort and predictability, and on UK roads specifically, it doesn't always nail that brief as well as Leapmotor would like. For reference, the MG4 has been consistently described as the more playful, more engaging car to actually drive through a series of bends, and on UK-specific testing, some reviewers rate its overall ride and handling balance ahead of the B05's too. So, if outright driving enjoyment and a more polished ride matter most to you, the MG4 still has a real case to make for itself in that department. Range anxiety is still one of the biggest things putting people off going electric. So let's break down the numbers. The B05 comes with a 67.1 kilowatt-hour battery, giving a claimed WLTP range of up to 300 miles on a single charge. Leapmotor quotes energy consumption of 15.9 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometers, though real-world testing during a mixed driving media launch actually showed closer to 17 kilowatt-hours per 100 kilometers, which is still a solid, respectable figure for a car this size. On charging, the B05 supports rapid DC charging at up to 174 kilowatts, which allows for a 10 to 80% top-up in around 24 minutes. Some sources quote a 30 to 80% charge in as little as 17 minutes. Either way, that's competitive rapid charging performance, and it means the B05 isn't going to leave you standing at a service station any longer than most of its EV rivals. There's also a battery heat pump fitted as standard across the range, which helps maintain efficiency and range in colder weather, something that's often an optional extra on rival cars, but comes included here. Running costs look strong too. As a fully electric car, the B05 sits in the cheapest road tax bracket and comfortably avoids the expensive car supplement. For company car drivers, it qualifies for a very low 4% benefit-in-kind tax rate for the 2026-27 tax year, working out to roughly £20 a month in company car tax for a lot of drivers, which is a compelling number if you're looking at this as a fleet or business vehicle. On warranty, Leapmotor covers the B05 for 4 years or 60,000 miles, whichever comes first, with the battery separately covered for 8 years or 100,000 miles. That battery cover is really strong and in line with most competitors. The overall vehicle warranty, though, is a bit shorter than some rivals. Renault, for example, offers 3 years, but with a much higher 100,000-mile limit, while brands like MG and Cupra offer longer overall cover. So it's solid, but not class-leading. Because Leapmotor is backed by Stellantis, servicing shouldn't be a headache either. You'll be able to get this car serviced through the wider Peugeot, Citroën, Vauxhall, and Fiat dealer network, which stretches right across the country. That's a real advantage over some standalone Chinese brands that are still building out their UK footprint from scratch. One thing worth flagging, Leapmotor is still a very new name in the UK, having only launched here in 2025, so it hasn't built up a track record in reliability surveys yet. That's not a red flag exactly, but if long-term reliability data matters to you, this is a brand still writing its own history.